Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody here today. Thank you for attending.
Thank you, Blair. Blair,
So,
go
yeah.
for it, buddy. I mean, just to give you an overview, our team is growing increasingly, day by day, and we have a lot of people, not only from the UK, but we've got people from Belgium, Holland, we've got people from Spain, but largely in Australia and New Zealand. So what we've been trying to do to everybody is give everybody a daily insight into what DasCoin really is. Give them little snippets on what, the education that we've been trying to give them. But obviously your biggest point, I suppose, is the it's the blockchain. So, could you, in a nutshell, tell us what blockchain is?
Sure. I appreciate the introduction. Thank you very much. Yes, immediately after this webinar, I'm going to get over to the airport. I've got to meet up with Terry in Vietnam tonight. So we're both flying in from Thailand, different locations. So blockchain is financial technology. I'd like to use an analogy perhaps to best describe it. Blockchain is essentially the spinal column in the human body. It's the vertebra, if you will. And that renders it essentially the nerve center. And if you think about Bitcoin and what Bitcoin represents, Bitcoin was merely an appendage on the human body. So to use that anatomical analogy, the spinal column is the blockchain, and that controls various processes, including something like Bitcoin or DasCoin or the other digital assets that are out there. So Bitcoin, as it were, was merely the first legitimizing use case for a blockchain. So in that particular instance, Bitcoin was a new digital asset created 8 or 9 years ago, and moved from digital wallet to digital wallet across this proprietary technology called a blockchain. So that's the first example and earliest example of how a blockchain was successfully integrated into a financial ecosystem. Now, fast forward nearly a decade later, and there are various blockchain technologies in the market right now. Some of these blockchain technologies are put out there by companies such as DasCoin. Some are put out there by banks. Some are developed by not only individual banks, but group of banks, consortia banks. Most notably, several banks got together. R3 created a consortium, and that's what they came up with. They came up with a blockchain. So our blockchain is proprietary. Our blockchain will be a multi-use blockchain. So I've spent the past 3 or 4 months working on developing blockchain use cases. So when we think about the Bitcoin blockchain is very limited in terms of what it can do, in terms of its utility. Of course, it can facilitate the peer-to-peer transactions from digital wallet to digital wallet, and those transactions become recorded on the blockchain. And very transparently, we can go to websites and actually look at the underpinnings of every transaction involving Bitcoin. We can see the quantum of Bitcoin that were exchanged. We can see timestamps and other sorts of data. So this is a new financial realm where transactions are transparently recorded on this financial technology called the blockchain. But if you read about a lot of the intended uses and use cases for blockchain technology, I've been reading about them now for a couple of years. And because we have our own proprietary blockchain technology that is now live, we've dedicated a lot of time and effort in developing actual blockchain use cases that stem far above and beyond what you see with the Bitcoin blockchain use case, which is moving money from one digital wallet to another digital wallet. So many of you may have seen the video that's on YouTube now that we produced. It's the video that we developed in Africa. So I was down in Africa for 2 weeks working on DasCoin related activity. And due to our relationship with some of the government officials in Uganda, relationships that I've had and nurtured for more than 15 years now, we were able to participate in developing some blockchain use cases. So for those of you who were, like Wayne, for instance, who were been able to attend many of our events, we had the privilege of welcoming to Hong Kong in the middle of January a couple of my colleagues from Africa. One of them is Madam Gertrude Njuba, whom you see in the video. So she's been kind enough to visit me in the United States. She was kind enough to visit us in Hong Kong. I just visited her and her team. And she left Hong Kong with such a fire in her belly for what we're doing with DasCoin that one of the first things she did when she got back is she established a new fintech company. And the purpose of that fintech company is to help us develop these blockchain use cases in Africa and perhaps elsewhere. So she created this, this fintech company called Blockchain Africa, which is assisting me in developing various blockchain use cases. Now, these blockchain use cases are being developed with an eye toward replicability. What does that mean? It means we want to develop blockchain use cases in the DasCoin community, in the NetLeaders community, that we can really take anywhere around the world. We don't want to necessarily develop things that are Africa specific. We want to be pioneers in developing blockchain use cases that can be also launched and replicated in places like Europe, places like the Americas, places like Asia, and elsewhere, Australia, New Zealand. So to give you an overview of some of the blockchain use cases that we developed in Africa, one of the first things we looked at was government. Madam Njuba is a government official. She's a senior presidential advisor. She's been with the current president of Uganda for more than 35 years. So there are various blockchain use cases that we've looked at, one of which is registering people in Uganda. So one of the agencies in Uganda came to us and wanted to know about our technology. So now we are working on the ability to actually register certain segments of the population, of the citizenry in Uganda on the blockchain. If you maybe have seen some of our other presentations that we've done where we've talked about what happened in India late last year, essentially the Prime Minister of India woke up one day and demonetized 86% of the Indian rupees. So the legacy 500 Indian rupee bill and the 1,000 Indian rupee bill were demonetized, meaning their value was rendered worthless. Because what they wanted to do is they wanted to take this largely cash economy in India and to digitize it, to replace it with new bills, because so many bills were outside the money system. Well, that's part of an overarching strategy and campaign that the Prime Minister of India had called digitization, digital India, digital future. So Prime Minister Modi in India wants to digitize the Indian citizenry, much in the same way that certain governments around the world want to digitize some of their persons. In Uganda, the case is very simple. You have 3 different registration numbers for many people in the country. You have, let's say, a national ID card. You have an electoral voting record number, and you have a driver's license number. So in working with government there, they said, why don't we think about using blockchain technology to essentially combine all 3 numbers, aggregate them as one, and create a new number that will become a unique identifier for every person in the country. So we've started having some conversations with the particular government agency down there about how this can be accomplished through the DasCoin blockchain. The value proposition for us as owners of Cycles and as eventual owners of DasCoin is that this will create utility. This will create demand and actual utility and an actual real-world application for the DasCoin blockchain. So that's one example of a government use case potential that we're looking at. Another one is land registration. Blockchain technology the entire world over is being used now to simplify and streamline many common processes, such as land registration. In a place like Uganda, you have very serious legacy issues that go back decades and decades and decades with land registration. Madam Najuba, whom I referenced earlier, the presidential advisor, her job is to work in the land registry division and actually work to resolve problems when they arise. And she deals with, I've been to her office, she deals with problems all day long. People who have one registration title and people who have another registration title, and both people think they're the rightful owners to land. Well, often these cases get bogged down in the legal system in Uganda for several years or more. I heard of a case where it took over 10 years to adjudicate the case. Well, if you think about the blockchain, once there is a conveyance of real estate, either through a purchase and sale agreement or through a lease transaction, those data can actually be registered on the blockchain in a digital format, which means that the data are always there. They can always be accessed. So they do not necessarily need to only exist in a paper format. This removes the ability for fraud. This removes the ability for people to receive, let's say, unlawfully remuneration to alter real estate records. And this means it becomes a very easy way to actually register who the rightful owners or lessors or lessees of land actually are. So we're working with a particular entity in Uganda on developing the blockchain use case for this land registration. Now, if we think about the countries on Earth that are taking a pioneer role regarding land registration in the blockchain, we think about countries like Ghana in West Africa. We think about Sweden. We think about Honduras in Central America. And we think about Georgia in Central Asia, in the Caucasus. So we have a very big opportunity with our blockchain technology to really become one of the pioneering solution providers in the world. Again, this is something that can create utility, demand, and value for our blockchain. That value can be registered in an increase in the value of Cycles and also an increase in the value of DasCoin if we execute these things correctly. So we've touched on a couple governmental blockchain use cases. Another one we're looking at very intently is education. In a country like Uganda, oftentimes it's difficult to push an academic transcript from one school to another. So when I got to Uganda, I said, why don't we work to think about blockchain as an electronic transcript? So the moment that a toddler first crawls into preschool, to the moment that a person leaves a postgraduate degree program in Uganda, there's no reason why a blockchain cannot be incorporated to act as an electronic repository for those report cards, for those transcripts. So if you think about it, it's something that can be done the entire world over. So students' entire academic credentials, entire academic career, the good, the bad, the ugly, can actually be placed on a blockchain, subject to proper processes being in place, security processes, so that data, the quality and that the data are actually maintained. We need to maintain the integrity of those data. But that being said, this is a major opportunity. So we linked up with the #1 private education facility, university in Uganda, 4-year school. They have 8,000 students. And you would have seen in that Blockchain Africa video the vice chancellor of that institution speaking. So he quickly realized how there is immense value in this blockchain application. So again, education is universal. There are approximately 100 million, I believe, when I researched college and university students around the world. And when you think about the number of youth who are in education in some form or fashion around the world below the college and university level, you can see that there are literally, as I calculate, more than 1.9 billion people that stand to be enrolled on some sort of blockchain technology. So I want to develop this blockchain use case. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Blair. Sorry, somebody's just come on and not muted themselves. Sorry.
Right on. So I want to apply this blockchain use case solution to education the entire world over. As Terry O'Hearn talks about at our various events and presentations, he thinks about and he aspires a situation the day when there can be 1 billion persons enrolled in the DasCoin, the DasNet blockchain. So education is universal. And if you think about it, these are the young people. These are the people who will be using these digital assets and these cryptocurrencies in the future. So it's a prime population that we should be looking to onboard. Another use case we're working on are banks and financial institutions. So as I mentioned in Zurich, the people who are part of Blockchain Africa, some of the people that some of you would have met in Dubai and in Hong Kong in January, have decided to form a new financial institution. So the type of financial institution they're forming is a financial cooperative. In many jurisdictions, we call them credit unions. So the primary reason why they are forming this financial cooperative is because there are literally thousands of other financial cooperatives across the country of Uganda. Yet none of these other cooperatives are working with blockchain technology yet. So they want to be a portal where the DasCoin, DasNet blockchain technology can be distributed to other financial cooperatives in the country and hopefully around Africa. A couple of the earliest use cases that their in formation financial cooperative are working on include some of the ones that I briefly talked about in Zurich a couple weekends ago. So in sub-Saharan Africa, there are approximately 630 million people who do not have power, who do not have electricity. And there are also approximately 300 million plus people who lack access to potable water, to clean, safe water. So the African team thought about how can we actually utilize the DasNet blockchain technology to affect a positive social change, positive social cause in our part of the world. And my hat's off to them. They came up with a couple different ways in which the DasNet blockchain technology can actually be applied to solving real world problems such as electricity and power. Now, we don't want to provide any sort of misconception that DasNet blockchain technology can become all things to all people. But when you look at the unique value proposition that they have put together for utilizing the DasNet blockchain technology to solve this issue, it becomes very interesting because on one hand, they will have a licensed financial cooperative over here. On the other hand, they will have these digital wallets, this blockchain. And the blockchain technology can be used by them to actually crowdfund money. So as people become members of their financial cooperative, those persons can have digital wallets, and those persons can invest in cycles or DasCoin or whatever the case may be. And the value of those cycles, the value of those DasCoin, the value of that local money can actually be used to provide electricity and potable water to a village through a development authority or to local people there who previously not had it. It's a brilliant use case for DasCoin blockchain technology. It ticks a lot of boxes. Number one, it validates our technology. It validates the digital wallet. Two, the blockchain is all about transparency. It's all about accountability. So we can work through development authorities down there to say, you know what, that unfortunate person over there in that village didn't have water or electricity last week. But this week, they have water, they have electricity. The blockchain can systematically and transparently actually record those things happening in that person's life. So the money can be crowdfunded through the digital wallets. Money can then transparently move to where it needs to move, and the actual positive impact that that financial cooperative is having can be registered on the blockchain. So these are some real-world financial institutional use cases that are being developed. Another big one that I really champion, that I really want to develop in earnest, has to do with supply chain. Supply chain, the intersection of blockchain and supply chain can impact all of our lives. There's a gentleman in the video who is the CEO of Kia, the South Korean motors company. He's a CEO in Uganda. And I think he very elegantly talks about how blockchain can be used to track vehicles, to track auto parts, and I think that's very important. I think another major use case can impact every country on earth. There are exporters in every country on earth. I don't care what country you're in. In Uganda, the country happens to be one of the top 10 coffee exporters in the world. So if I walk into a Starbucks in Fifth Avenue in New York, I'll see people queued up in line waiting to pay $5 or $6 for a cup of coffee. If that cup of coffee on the order board happens to say organic Ugandan coffee, people will be willing to shell out another $1 or $2 for coffee. Now, I'm not a coffee drinker, so it's all foreign to me. But the point is this: the blockchain is being utilized around the world now to actually do what's called point of origin verification and validation. What does that mean? That means when a good or a commodity is actually produced, its existence can be registered on the blockchain. And that's of importance because the blockchain can actually be utilized to potentially track the entire life cycle of a good, a commodity. Now, in the case of Uganda, some of the coffee being produced there is organic. So if there are governmental agencies that actually provide organic certifications, those are very valuable data in the supply chain, because if you're an importer, let's say in the United States or in the UK, and you have the opportunity to import this bag of coffee or this bag of coffee, and this bag of coffee happens to have its attributes, its characteristics, its point of origin actually validated on the blockchain, and perhaps even its organic certification validated on the blockchain, and this one doesn't, then this everything else being equal, this good over here, this bag of coffee has a lot more commercial value, much more commercial value. Now, I picked on coffee very amorphously because coffee is produced there. Uganda is also a major tea producer. We met with the Export Promotions Board, which is essentially the government agency that deals with brand Uganda in the international export community. And we talked about how blockchain technology can actually be utilized to validate these things, to actually prove that these commodities are being produced in a sustainable manner. There's a major global movement afoot right now regarding food security. Food security is becoming an increasingly important thing in each of our lives as food becomes more scarce, as weather patterns change, as people become fed up with pesticides and the Monsantos of the world and this and that. Food security is of vital importance as the global population continues to increase. So, if you think about what was done last year with blockchain technology in China, you had IBM, you had Walmart, and you had Tsinghua University, very prestigious Beijing-based university, get together and realize that they can actually track certain things with blockchain. So in the case of China, they're now tracking pork, they're tracking pigs from the moment of birth, post-gestation, to the moment that they end up on your plate. So much like I just talked about, where an agricultural commodity can be tracked around the world using blockchain, China is just starting to do this with pigs. Now, the daily demand for pigs in China is huge, and the daily demand for pork globally is immense. So now you can begin to understand why giants like IBM and Walmart are adopting blockchain technology to be able to track Chinese pork. So there are profound implications for supply chain applications and use cases on the blockchain. I just cited one example of one country, one commodity. If we think about all the countries on Earth, and we think about all of the various commodities that are produced around the world, the opportunities are immense to put the DasNet blockchain technology into play, into action in a very major way. Prior to going to Africa, I was in India for a week. I traveled all around India. I spoke about the blockchain. I spoke about our financial technology. I spoke about use cases, and we left India with the same types of ideas that we're working on in Africa. Now, India is a very large market. Perhaps it's even the world's largest market. India has probably about 1.3 billion people. There's so many people in India, the government of India has no idea. Interestingly, we met up with some esteemed people in India, and these people are involved in organic tea trade. Well, organic Indian tea is in great demand all over the world. In fact, I think when I was there, somebody said the country of Germany basically just comes in and buys the entire lot out year after year. Well, think about it. If you have a country like India, which is looking to uplift its agricultural sector, I mean, agriculture is of profound importance in India. They have to feed 1.3 billion people. But Indian agricultural exports are also very important. So if you have a country like India where agriculture is of vital importance, why not take our blockchain technology and apply it to that sector, to the Indian agricultural sector? So we met with some VIPs in India where we talked about this application, this intended blockchain use case, and they became very excited. So I look forward to getting back to India in the near future and to actually working with our team there. We have some excellent people. I can't say enough about people like Ronak and Harvinder, Sandesh, Manoj. Others over there are just doing fantastic work in introducing us in India on the ground to people who are policymakers, people who want to understand blockchain technology better, and people who can actually help us apply our blockchain technology to real-world solutions in that wonderful country. There are other very highly situated people in that country that we will be talking about, I think, in future presentations and future meetings, who are more than happy and more than capable of opening doors for DasCoin, .NET blockchain technology to some very important people and agencies and government level situations and opportunities across the country. So we're extremely fortunate to be working with these people over there. So I've just talked about government, I've talked about education, I've talked about exporters, I've talked about supply chain, I've talked about banks, I've talked about financial institutions, and I've talked about our blockchain technology having a profound positive social change, a positive impact on people. It's not all just about making money with blockchain. My theory, and I will continue to hold on to this, and I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be validated in my theory is that once we do these things, as we do these things correctly with blockchain technology, the markets will reward us with a proper valuation of DasCoin. So I've just expended a lot of time and energy in discussing blockchain use case technology. As those of you who were in attendance in Zurich saw, we've established a joint venture with a wonderful Singapore company that Terry's had a relationship with for quite a while. This fintech company in Singapore actually focuses on developing these blockchain use cases from the application standpoint. So they've been developing blockchain use case applications for banks, for governments, for insurance companies, and for many more for quite some time. As you would have seen in the 122 or so page PDF that summarizes the Zurich launch from 2 weeks ago, we're very fortunate to be working with this company. Most of these other coin companies around the world will never get to the point where their blockchain technology is being utilized for anything other than perhaps their coin. Ditto with the Bitcoin blockchain. So we've now leapfrogged, from my perspective, we've leapfrogged most of our peers, most of our competitors in this space, to the point now where we have a professional organization through a joint venture which is helping us actually develop and map out and develop these blockchain use cases. Blockchain use cases, I'm extremely active in developing, working closely with members of the community, working closely with our Blockchain Africa team in Africa. And I think we're going to be receiving some guidance over the next 4 weeks or so about how the entire net leaders community and DasCoin community can help us focus on what their role is going to be and how the community can share an opportunity with the rightful people in the community so that we can evaluate the opportunity and work on developing a blockchain use case. So I think in the next 4 to 5 weeks, we'll be in a position to provide guidance about exactly how that's going to take place. So that's essentially what I wanted to cover here on blockchain use case, blockchain here today. Another thing that as Metin said, I'm working on here is DAS payments on DasPay. So for those of you who have either heard one of my presentations in person over the past 8 or 9 months, or maybe see me on Facebook, or see me on a video, or caught up with me at one of our events in Belgrade or Dubai or Hong Kong or Zurich or elsewhere, I've talked extensively about why I got involved. The reason why I got involved is because I have, like many people, been perplexed for quite some time about cryptocurrency. The biggest legacy question regarding cryptocurrency is, what do I do with it? How do I spend it? And I got involved because I realized that through my contacts and through some things I had done, I have the solution to that question. So I have solved, conceptually speaking, the last mile in cryptocurrency. I have access to the people, to the technologies, which actually render it possible to utilize something like cryptocurrency to pay for goods and services. That's done through something called digital enablement. So digital enablement essentially means utilizing mobile devices to digitally enable the payment of goods and services in a contactless fashion. So I happen to know the global leader in this space, the global leader in this technology, and I've been referring to them for 8 or 9 months now in presentations and comments that I've been providing. And for those of you who were in attendance in Zurich, you had the opportunity to listen to the man firsthand, to actually hear this person that I brought to Zurich and introduced to the DasCoin community, because this is the global leader. His company is the global leader in this technology. His company is the company that wrote the specifications for Apple Pay at the request of MasterCard. His company is the company that developed the mobile payments platform and solution for the world's largest telco outside of China. That telco has 469 million global subscribers. That gentleman's company last July was awarded the global PayPal contract. That gentleman's company is now providing payment services and solutions for Uber. So we have the world's largest consumer technology company in Apple. We have the world's largest telco outside of China in Vodafone. We have the world's largest digital wallet company in PayPal. And we have the world's largest transportation company now in Uber, which has seen the light. These are the same technologies that we endeavor to integrate into the DasCoin solution set, into the DasCoin community of companies. So we're very fortunate to have this relationship, because I want to solve that last mile in cryptocurrency. I want to get to the point where somebody can take their mobile device and have a digital wallet and actually go to a store, go to a 7-Eleven, contactlessly wave their phone and have that Slurpee or that cup of coffee paid for using their mobile device. That technology exists out there because it's being done, as we all know. So on the Apple platform, you have something called Apple Pay on the iOS platform. And on the Android platform, you have Google Pay, you have Android Pay, you have Samsung Pay, and you now have Vodafone Pay, thanks to our friends. Again, some of whom you've met in Zurich. So this is being done, but we want to do this en masse for a cryptocurrency for the first time ever. It's extremely difficult to get this done. It took this company that I'm talking about several years to develop this technology. It took them tens of millions of dollars of investment that they raised organically to actually get this developed. So we're talking about technology that actually exists and is being utilized right now. Moreover, that company is certified as a processor, transactional processor by MasterCard, by Visa, by JCB, and they're just completing their China UnionPay certifications. So by teaming up with the world leader in this space, I believe that we will be able to create a lot of organic value for the DasNet blockchain, and to actually be able to use DasCoin globally. If you think about Bitcoin, Bitcoin is a critical success in many regards. Critical success. But that critical success called Bitcoin can only be used at about 150,000 merchants around the world. Those merchants have either taken an organic or inorganic decision to accept Bitcoin. So, when I realized that there was this initiative called DasCoin last year, I said, you know what, guys? I've got the solution for the last mile in cryptocurrency. I don't want to be limited to 150,000 merchants around the world. Through this technology we're talking about, we can actually touch 60 million merchants around the world. And that's really one of the underlying value propositions for DasPay, for Das payments. It's working through what we call the rails, the existing rails of Visa and MasterCard, so that person can use their mobile device at 60 million merchants around the world. And if that medium of exchange, that store of value, happens to be DasCoin, what do you think the value of DasCoin can become? I asked that question rhetorically, but the answer is, if you have a lot of people around the world who can now utilize their mobile device to pay for something, and they actually have DasCoin as the store of value and medium of exchange, then we can create a very high transactional velocity in DasCoin. And again, I think the market can reward us with an ample valuation for that asset. So that covers off DasPay and Das payments. We talked about the blockchain. What else would you like me to talk about here today?
Blair, I think you know what? I think you've done your what I requested really. I think that the majority of people I'm very aware that obviously DasCoin is going to be the first to go mainstream, and that's its intention too, because of obviously exactly what you've said. So it's giving people an overview of why DasCoin has the potential to be so powerful. I mean, something I quoted on, it was September the 30th, 2016, and I wouldn't mind seeing what you think of this as well. I quoted that DasCoin has the potential to be the contender, if not bigger than Bitcoin, in time. What would you say to that?
Well, again, there are many different metrics and many different ways of actually quantifying how big Bitcoin is. Let's think about it from many perspectives. One, it has a valuation, right now between, let's say, 19 billion and 20 billion US dollars, which is a very large valuation. Now, if Bitcoin were a company, I would say most companies would kill to have a valuation that big, which is good. But when you think about other metrics, it's been estimated that approximately 2,000 people in this world control 75% of the Bitcoin. That's a very inequitable distribution of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is this remarkably decentralized concept, this remarkably decentralized asset, yet it's essentially hoarded by 2,000 people. So, I mean, just here in Asia, just looking outside, I'm on the 10th floor here. I mean, I can look at many nearby buildings here. I don't know if you can see it. I can look at many nearby buildings, and I'm looking at windows where there are 2,000 people there. So a remarkably small number of people in this world control Bitcoin. So from that metric, from that standpoint, it's very conceivable and easy for DasCoin to eclipse Bitcoin. Sure, why not? We don't want to have 2,000 people control the fate of DasCoin. We want to have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people who understand this concept and who actually want to participate in the same way. Now, other ways, if you look at the transactional velocity of Bitcoin and the number of times per week that the Bitcoin money supply of 16 odd million Bitcoin are turned over, it can be that transactional velocity has increased significantly. But doesn't matter who you are, people are not yet to the point where they're taking their smartphone and going down to 7-Eleven and spending their Bitcoin for a cup of coffee or for a Slurpee. So if we actually succeed in enabling, through digital enablement, the ability to go down to 7-Eleven and actually spend your DasCoin, I would normally expect that there would be a very high velocity of transactional activity involving DasCoin. So that's another way in which DasCoin can easily eclipse what is taking place in Bitcoin. And in terms of value, I don't want to speculate on what the DasCoin valuation can become. But when we think about the fact that other coin companies are not going to have access to this awesome DasPay technology, and when we think about most coin companies will not have smart contracts, we will. Most coin companies are not going to have the depth and the breadth of the blockchain use cases like I just enumerated, like I just summarized. When you take all those things and put them together, I think we have an environment where the valuation of DasCoin can become very, very just. The markets can amply reward us with a proper valuation, all of those things being considered. So I think in many ways we will outcompete and we will outdistance ourselves from Bitcoin.
Thank you very much, Blair.
Absolutely.
As always, you blow me away, and I'm sure everybody else away on this call with your knowledge and how you deliver that information. It's can I just thank you very much on behalf of everybody as well, because I know there's a lot of people that are obviously enjoying their Easter as you have, and I know you've interrupted your Easter Sunday for us. Thank you so much for your time, and can't wait. I can't wait.
Really, my pleasure.
I'll meet you again.
Happy to have these calls. Happy to have our next one. We can look on getting it in the books. Like I said, I'm literally walking out the door from the airport now.
Sure.
Wish everybody a happy Easter. To the entire DasCoin community, the entire Net Leaders community. We look forward to seeing you at a future event. We look forward to seeing you online. And happy Easter to everybody.
Thank you very much, Blair. You're a true gent. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers, everybody.
Safe flight.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Okay, guys. Wow. As you can tell and as you can see, that was Blair Baker. That's why I speak so highly of that guy. He's without a doubt the most inspiring person I've met in business, and as you can say, I think that shows why. I believe that we are 100% in the right place at the right time. This company is so forward thinking, and for somebody like Blair, that's just one, bearing in mind, guys, that's just one part of the jigsaw here, of what we, who's a part of this company. Okay, Net Leaders and DasCoin. This is how big this is. So for people that are sitting on the sidelines, if that doesn't show you the caliber and the power and the vision of what DasCoin is about and where it's going, and then I don't think anything else will. But for you guys that are license holders, now you fully understand, and beautifully put as always with Blair. I don't think anybody could put it any differently or any better. He's told you what blockchain technology is. He's told you what the capability of what blockchain can be used for. And obviously then, his words, the last mile of cryptocurrency, which is spendability. And that's being solved, okay, with DasPay.